Welcome back to the Metro on 1019 WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Tia Graham. The Avenue of Fashion is home to some of Detroit's most iconic businesses and shops. The area has been home to innovators and people who want to see their communities thrive. Light Up Livernois is a celebration of businesses on Livernois between 7 and 8 Mile, and this Saturday's event promotes local shops and highlights the restaurants, fashion, and artwork coming out of Detroit. Joining us now to talk more about Light Up Livernois is Allison Curd. She's one of the event's organizers and co-founder of the Independent Business Association headquartered on the Avenue of Fashion. Allison, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you so much for having me on the Metro, Tia.
Of course. So, Allison, you've been hosting Light Up Livernois since at least 2022. Why did you all decide to start having this event?
We decided to start having this event, and it was produced previously by another organization, but it was very small. Mm-hmm. So we originally, it started with us, and we kind of lent out the brand to them, is my understanding. I wasn't involved at that point. But we decided to do it because we felt that we needed a stronger push to help elevate and illuminate, that's why it's called Light Up Livernois, to illuminate the businesses along Livernois Avenue for the economic impact, to keep these merchants thriving and to bring attention to that in Detroit.
And Allison, what's unique about this year's celebration in particular?
Okay, there are a lot of unique things, and each year we try to make it bigger and better and bring new installations to the street. So this year we have, like every year, we have new participating merchants. I can't name who they are for you right now because we say there are over 200, but along Livernois Avenue between 8 Mile and the Lodge Freeway, mm-hmm. and the event is not going all the way to the Lodge Freeway this year, but that is a goal. There are some 300 businesses. So we're looking at new businesses that weren't here last year. So that's one of the new things. But some of the things we're excited about is we've got participation from NOMA, the National Organization of Minority Architects, yes. The Detroit chapter. We have participation from them this year, and we also have the art of filmmaking. Yes. We have a lot more musical acts than we did last year. So there's food, there's fashion, there's automotive design happening along Livernois. So lots of new things and it's new and different every year, even when we have the same categories of activities.
Yeah, Allison, and like you were saying, there are so many different shops and merchants that are going to be present during Light Up Livernois, including the filmmaker panel featuring local film professionals, including Tamashi on there. But I do want to pivot here because one of the local residents of the Avenue of Fashion is Tiff Massey. And she had a solo exhibit, 7 Mile in Livernois, at the DIA for a year until this past May. And that was both honoring Livernois and Black cultural touch points. So can you talk a little bit about that exhibit? And, did you see any positivity headed that way due to that exhibit?
What I'm going to say is no, I was not involved in that. And so I was not privy to being able to really speak on that per se. But what I will say is whenever we have local artists and in the area, we like to promote them, and we always find that we get a good response as long as people know about these things. And that's why it's so important to have conversations with outlets like yours that help, bring awareness to everybody. So I would say, even though I don't know firsthand, and I apologize for that.
No worries.
I would say that we got good response, and it is always very important to have those kind of tie-ins.
But yeah, no worries about that either. Tiff Massey, Detroiter, she's an artist and she credits 7 Mile and Livernois, especially the Avenue of Fashion, for a lot of who she is, especially as an artist, including the adornments that Black Detroiters wear and how we decide to dress ourselves. So it's a nod to the Avenue of Fashion. And Allison, just speaking of the Avenue of Fashion, what are ways that the Avenue of Fashion is historically a touch point for Black Detroiters? Can you talk about the importance that the Avenue of Fashion has held for Black Detroit?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. So the Avenue of Fashion, and it got that moniker, and officially it's on the map as the Avenue of Fashion. And that technically that is between 7 and 8 Mile Road.
Mm-hmm.
And historically, we had, and I don't know, growing up, there were, I think, Himmelholz was there. There were several other fashion outlets to where it historically became a spot in Detroit to go and get fashion, and for us to go and dress and kind of develop our flavor for fashion and dressing, which is in Detroit. It's very distinctive, if I say that. So the Avenue of Fashion has evolved and changed over the years, but between 7 and 8 Mile, we have many fashion retailers, new fashion retailers that weren't there obviously back in the day, but that has kind of been a pulling point for fashion. And what we want people to know is they should come on Saturday if they've never been and check out all of these eclectic offerings, because Black people typically, and this is probably historically coming from our roots in Africa, we're very colorful, we're very stylish, we have lots of different kinds of flavor, if you will. And so the Avenue of Fashion becomes an actual spot for tourism to come to Detroit and check out. And the festival actually is promoting 4 distinct shopping and dining districts between 6 and 8 Mile Road and Avenue of Fashion being one of those 4.
Yeah, and if you could just briefly give us the other 3.
I will give you the other 3. I'm happy to do so. So we have, like I said, the Avenue of Fashion is on Livernois between 7 and 8. Mm-hmm. Then we have Live 7, which is Livernois at 7 Mile. Then we have Live 6, which is Livernois at 6 Mile. And then past 6 Mile, we have across from U of D and the other universities over there, that is the University District. And it's important to distinguish those areas, because when you have people come in to the other 3 and they're expecting it to be the Avenue of Fashion, then, they're not really celebrating the difference in terms of there are lots of restaurant offerings and professional services and all types of other things other than fashion in those other 3 districts. Not that there isn't fashion, but the Avenue of Fashion, where you have the strongest cluster of fashion retailers, is between 7 and 8, like I said before.
Right now, we're talking about Light Up Livernois 2025. Our guest is Allison Kerr, co-founder of the Independent Business Association. Now, Allison, I want to come to and bring it back to, of course, the Livernois itself, but the streetscape has changed quite a bit. There are a lot of bike lanes and widened sidewalks, so we've seen a lot of improvements. How are businesses doing now compared to before these changes took hold?
So, whenever that's a major change. Mm-hmm. And whenever there's major change, you're going to have growing pains. So, there were challenges during the construction, but now, and another thing that people should know is these, and this was by design, and the Independent Business Association was the catalyst in getting those sidewalks widened. These sidewalks, and I forget the actual dimension, but they are the widest sidewalks in Michigan. So they're cafe-style sidewalks. And I had been out of the city, out of state, while that was being done. And when I came back and saw the change, it was just fantastic and beautiful. But it is strategic and by design, so that, and I am going to actually answer your question.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
It is strategic and by design, because a lot of times when I'm talking about the festival and the event, and people are like, "Oh, you're going to close off the street," and we say, no, we don't close off the street. The sidewalks are wide enough for us to put the installations and the activities on those sidewalks, like I said, by design, so that traffic can still come through, because the whole purpose is to promote and illuminate the businesses along the avenue. And if traffic could not drive through, then people would not be able to come through and see everything that's going on and patronize the businesses. So our tagline for the day of and for always on Livernois is that people come, park, and a lot of people don't know there's free parking. Park, walk, shop, dine, and explore Livernois Avenue.
Allison, I honestly am one of those people. I drove through the neighborhood last summer. Actually, I drove through Live 6, Live 7, the whole entire space, and I thought to myself, I need to get out more. I need to see what's happening in my city a lot more. But we have about a minute and a half left, so this is one of our last questions. People often talk about, quote, two Detroits, the two separate Detroits. They emphasize the amount of development that skews towards downtown and away from the neighborhoods. But the Avenue was one of the areas outside of downtown that did see an influx of investment from the city. What are you hearing from business and shop owners and homeowners in that area? Has the investment paid off so far?
I think absolutely the investment is paying off in terms of, it is very important. It's very important to, and this is the work that we do and why we have the festival, is very important to illuminate the neighborhoods, because that's where people live. And it's important to have amenities in the neighborhoods, such as all of these things that are on Livernois Avenue. So it brings the neighborhoods, and people don't realize these are very prestigious neighborhoods with very good properties in them. And a lot of times people who haven't been over here, another reason why we have the event, they are surprised and amazed. And it's like, oh, didn't know this was here. Yeah. So the investment has paid off. It's continuing to pay off. And we do this event to also bring more development along the avenue. There are commercial spaces still available we want businesses to come on Livernois to provide, these are several different neighborhoods, a huge neighborhood cluster that are patronizing these businesses and that can sustain them.
Allison Curd is the co-founder of the Independent Business Association, which is headquartered on the Avenue of Fashion. She is the organizer of Light Up Livernois, which is happening this Saturday on Livernois Avenue, of course, in the city of Detroit. Allison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Of course. This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Have a great day.